What do Naruto vs. Sasuke, L's conversation with Light Yagami, and Gogeta vs. Broly all have in common? These are all fight scenes. Now, you might be a bit confused since one of these things is not like the other, but before I explain how they are all the same, I'd also like to mention that they all have a very distinct difference that also separates them. Using these differences, I will attempt to answer my main question of the video: how does Black Lagoon hide a fight scene within a conversation? How's it going, everyone? My name is Kaimon. For those of you that are new here, I make videos on anime that ask questions that no one was wondering. In today's video, I want to take a moment and go over a scene from REUPLOADED's 2006 anime Black Lagoon in a similar manner to my Attack on Titan video, breaking it down into sections and seeing how an exchange of words and a single bullet can be classified as a fight scene. But before we get started, did you know that 99% of you are not subscribed? If you don't want to miss an upload of mine, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It's free and you can always unsub later. Just a moment ago, I stated that Naruto vs. Sasuke, L's conversation with Light, and Gogeta vs. Broly all have similarities and differences. They are the same in that I would consider them all fight scenes, but the trick in their differences lie in what kind of fight they are. Starting with Naruto's fight with Sasuke, this is the benchmark I will be using for an example of a good fight scene. It has narrative significance, pre-established motives, and clearly defined consequences and personal investment for the characters involved. This fight revolves around the heated clash of two lifelong rivals fighting to the death for the fate of the world. Throughout the story and the fight itself, we learn about the importance of their battle to the overall story, the characters themselves, and what will happen if one side loses. Conversely, we have Gogeta vs. Broly, the large-scale epic battle between two powerhouses that I've watched more times than I care to admit. It has everything you would want to see out of two people beating the shit out of each other, with the spectacle of the Dragon Ball franchise as the cherry on top. I would also say that this is a good fight scene, but for different reasons compared to Naruto vs. Sasuke. Lastly is L's conversation with Light Yagami. This scene has the narrative significance and consequences of a normal fight, but the battle is done verbally and mentally, but not physically. It has the same back and forth that a good fight would have while not a single punch is thrown. So now that we have gone over the examples, let's take a moment to clearly define what a fight scene is going forward. When I went over Naruto vs. Sasuke, I stated 3 criteria for what I would classify as a good fight. There has to be narrative significance in that it is important to the overall plot of the story. There have to be pre-established motives and clearly defined consequences, and lastly, there needs to be personal investment to it, meaning there has to be some level of importance to the characters involved and how their fight relates to them on a personal level. Now, I know some of you are thinking by now that I'm arbitrarily stretching the definition of what a fight is. After all, it's just when two characters fight each other, and it shouldn't be that deep, right?
Right? Wrong!
You see, a scene where two characters are just fighting each other is what I like to call an action scene. An action scene or action sequence differs from just a normal fight scene. The focus is more on the spectacle or is used as a vehicle to move the plot forward rather than it being a major part of the plot's path. Circling back to Gogeta vs. Broly, I would consider this more of an action scene rather than a fight scene on the same level as Naruto vs. Sasuke. Now, this isn't to say one scene is better than the other, but that they both have different purposes within their own stories. Again, you're probably wondering why the final battle of Naruto and the final battle of the Broly movie aren't comparable, and to that, my dear viewer, I say this. If you're watching Naruto vs. Sasuke, you're watching it because it's the climactic end to a decade-long journey. If you're watching Gogeta vs. Broly, you're watching it because two buff men ragdolling each other through mountains and the fabric of space-time gives you more of a dopamine rush than a fresh pile of cocaine. So now that we have all the groundwork established, let's get to the actual subject of the video, the conversation between Rock and Revy from episode 7 of Black Lagoon. The context of this scene, however, starts in episode 5, when the pair are on a sunken submarine.
I've got a story that's perfect for this sort of atmosphere.
Revi tells Rock a story from her past of living on the streets of New York City. She mentions this as a warning to Rock not to lecture her from a place of privilege and morality, promising to kill him the next time he does so. That next time comes when the two are having lunch after a job, with the tension between them still high.
Revi, I'm not gonna apologize anymore.
To start off, we have how any fight would start. Both characters squaring off, tensions are high, and all the audience is waiting for is for someone to throw the first punch. The scene begins on a lighter tone, with some light teasing from Rock to a clearly pissed off Revi. Their conversation gradually escalates as Revi suggests that Rock should move back to Japan. Rock counters with how it was Revi's idea that he joined the Lagoon Company, leading her to believe that it was a mistake. Rock then asks if she was still in a bad mood because of their conversation back in episode 5. This first part of the scene sets up the emotional aspect of the conversation. Rock, whether intentionally or not, talks down to Revi, stating that he isn't going to apologize for something he doesn't feel is wrong. This shows two characteristics from Rock as a person. One is that he isn't willing to give up on his morals just because he was threatened, and the second lies in the way that he says it. Rock specifically states that he won't apologize anymore, linking back to his past and how he would always have to apologize or make excuses even if he didn't want to. On the flip side is Revi's reaction to her threat being challenged by Rock. Him refusing to apologize puts the ball in her court, leading to the next section. One more aspect of fights in media is how characters change from offensive to defensive positions. During many fight scenes across all media, there is a constant flow to the battle. One person is on offense and the other on defense, with many moments for neutral, not unlike fighting games. The scene begins in neutral and progresses towards the main conflict, where Rock takes the offensive.
There's no cure for a fool with a gun.
The next section is where the first hypothetical punch is thrown. Rock, now fully on offense, continues his challenge to Revi threatening to kill him. His adamant refusal to apologize leads to Revi pulling her gun on him, and at first glance it might seem like Revi is on the offensive now, but Rock is still in control. Because if he dies, she will have proved him right. And as Rock says, there is no cure for a fool with a gun. What this part of the conversation did was set up the second aspect of personal investment. The first aspect was already fulfilled by both of them being the main characters, but the second comes from both of them attacking each other's character. Revi already threatened to kill Rock if he tried to apply his morals and ideals to her, and his refusal in this scene leads to him attacking her by way of calling her a fool with a gun. Another thing that is set up is something prevalent throughout the rest of the series. For Rock, it is that he has a strong sense of right and wrong, and is willing to stick to it as best as he can. He knows what kind of world he lives in now, and he still chooses to see the best in those around him, even if calling them out on their bullshit costs him his life. Speaking of calling out bullshit...
Who are you calling bastard? My name is Rock! You got that?
All the cards are laid out on the table. Rock snatches the gun away from Revi's hand and firmly stands his ground. Every insult Revi throws at him is futile and gets thrown back in her face. This scene uses all the pent-up tension between the two to its fullest. Rock points out Revi's hypocrisy and how she presents herself as a hardened criminal, but acts like a money-obsessed lowlife who is willing to scavenge for scraps. The best part about this scene, in my opinion, however, is Rock correcting Revi whenever she calls him out of name. Rock knows who he is and won't allow someone he trusts to forget that. In isolation, everything about this beginning of the scene will tell you everything you need to know about Rock as a character. Now, every fight needs a strong emotional climax, and this one is no different. Rock's words are starting to break Revi because she knows he's right. She states that Rock could never understand her because he has no clue what she has been through. A man who has lived a safe, sheltered life could never understand those who suffered. The argument continues to evolve in a subversive manner. Instead of it just being over then and there, Rock decides to not only double down by stating that Revi also knows nothing about him, but also that she was a coward for not owning up to her mistakes and faults. Instead, she plays the tragic heroine.
There are no heroes in this life!
With that final line of reality check from Rock, Revi utters the words that describe the whole philosophy of Black Lagoon and its characters. There are no heroes in this life. In Black Lagoon, every character you meet, whether they are drug lords, crime bosses, or pirates of the South Seas, none of them are heroes. They are just people trying to get by. But even through all of that, Rock still sees the good in the people around him and doesn't want Revi to just be a low-life criminal. Through the whirlwind of words and emotions, Revi throws the first punch and the heated battle comes to an end. Rock details a bit about his own life, one of monotony, submissiveness, and betrayal. Meeting Revi was the best thing that ever happened to him, and he won't let her act like those that betrayed him. The conclusion lies with them both at the back of a cop car, sharing the embers of Rock's cigarette, staring into each other's eyes. So to recap, our main question was, how does this count as a fight scene hidden in a conversation? To begin, we determined what type of fight scenes there are. There are ones that are narratives told through combat, hostile conversations, and action based on spectacle. Afterwards, we established that there is a difference between a fight and an action sequence. And finally, I laid out my personal criteria for what I would consider to be a good fight scene. Needing narrative significance, pre-established motives and consequences, and personal investment for the characters involved. Rock and Revi's conversation, in my opinion, meets all these criteria. The narrative significance is the two main characters' clashing ideals, the motives of both characters being to prove the other wrong with the consequences of possible death, and the personal investment of both people having suffered in their life and trying to show that the world either can or cannot change. There is no cure for a fool with a gun, there are no heroes, and no matter who you are, we all suffer. Hey, thanks for watching to the end of the video. Black Lagoon quickly became one of my favorite series after having only seen this clip out of context, and I love these characters ever since. Everything you need to know about them is told expertly in only a few short minutes. If you want to see more content like this from me, make sure to leave a comment down below and hit subscribe. My next video will be on the art of anime openings and endings, and I hope to see you there. With that, I've been Keimon, and I'll see you all next time. Later!
いつでも I love you 君に take a kiss me 忘れられないから僕の大事なメモリーどら焼きは主食になれない